ma'am.
I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck's City Council meeting for Wednesday, May 29th. If you could all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Baldwin.
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
White.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, so on to Mayor's comments tonight. I'd first like to congratulate Ryan Cummins. City Council voted last week to offer the city manager position to Ryan. And we still have a few details to work through to make it official, but we're just really so thankful for you taking on the interim position for the last few months. I know you are looking forward to hiring your replacement in the planning and zoning position. We just have a great city staff. And I just know under your leadership style that they'll continue to thrive and our city is really in the best hands. So congratulations and thank you so much. Also exciting to see the announcement of the ribbon cutting ceremony for the new playground. It will be this Friday at 3:15. I think a lot of you saw the note that came out from the city. Thank you, Jamie, for sending that out. I know many elementary school students will be there along with their parents. So we're really looking forward to a good turnout and being able to open that up for the kids to enjoy. A few of us had a chance to take part in another ribbon cutting ceremony for a new bed and breakfast in town, the Porches on Mason. It really is a stunning new addition to our area and what a great spot. You can walk right into town. It's right behind the Saugatuck Center for the Arts. It's a beautiful addition to our city. And Helen and I also attended an open house on the other side of the river in Douglas, the new owners of the Forest Inn of Saugatuck that was previously the Sherwood Inn. And we had an opportunity to see their new improvements there. And then I also had a chance to meet with the owners of the Wickwood Inn, which has undergone an extensive renovation inside. And honestly, all three of these places are stunning and everybody's doing a fantastic job. Those of us who those were just some of the ones that I was able to attend over the last couple of weeks. It's been a really busy week. But we also have a lot of new businesses in town that have opened up. And I'm just really thankful for all of those entrepreneurs who have chosen Saugatuck to set up shop. And I wish them all the best. It's going to be a really successful summer. We are already busy, as you can tell, lots of folks in town, even through the month of May. So it's been really busy. And then finally, just a big congratulations to the Saugatuck High School class of 2024. A lot of proud trailblazers, and I look forward to seeing the future of all of those students who just graduated last week. Okay, on to the city manager comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank you and the council for your offer of employment to be the permanent city manager. Very excited and look forward to kind of working through those next steps and working with all of you going forward. So thank you.
Okay, on to any agenda changes, additions or deletions. All right, any guest speakers tonight? All right, moving on to public comment on agenda items only. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to come to the podium, please state your name and where you live.
Mark Klungel, 747 Water. I'm commenting on the no parking, which is a huge, huge undertaking that's on the agenda for the night. Let's say the one I'm really concerned about is that there's no parking on Pleasant Street at all, is what you're saying. Back in June 13 of 2013, I was here with City Council, where we were talking about the same thing. No parking on Pleasant Street. 6 of the property owners were here at that meeting. That's 11 years ago. And we all agreed, because the fire chief had complained that he couldn't get his new, at that time, new 100-foot ladder truck down the street. Because it took 25 feet to set out the outriggers. and that street's 20 feet wide. Well, all the streets on your list that you're putting no parking on one side are 20 feet wide. The difference is Pleasant Street has curbs. And at that meeting, we all agreed, the property owners and council, that we would have no parking on one side of Pleasant Street. That's 11 years ago. And we didn't want signs. We asked that the curb be painted yellow. So no parking. Well, city council didn't follow through. The city didn't follow through. Nothing happened. But taking away all the parking on Pleasant Street is absolutely crazy. Just because it's narrow like all the other streets in town, it would just cripple the property owners. And to do something like this, I mean, I wouldn't have caught this had I not just caught the dump, or basically the agenda. I went through it. I mean, the property owners have rights to know what's going on. And this was really hard to catch. It's hidden. There's no letters to the people, the property owners. This is a huge change for all the property owners, especially if you're eliminating all parking. I would really request that, one, you take some time on this a little bit more. I know safety is important. What we're doing is punishing basically the day trippers. We're affecting tourism and that comes into town. But why don't we look, I mean, this mayor and the previous mayor both asked the planning commission to look at parking. Nothing's happened. They set their agenda or their goals for next year and parking's not on it. 2 years in a row, they've been asked to look at parking. They pick their own things to look at. Parking's a difficult situation. It's important. So I'm asking that we reconsider this and notify the residents beforehand, but I really am asking that we do not eliminate both sides of the street on Pleasant Street. Thank
All
you.
right, Mark, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mark. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on agenda items only?
Hi, Erin Lowe. I lived here for 31 of my 41 years, but I live in Fenville now. But my husband and I take care of 4 rentals up on the hill. And so the no parking affects us quite a bit too. And I have to agree with the gentleman here that it just kind of seemed like it suddenly happened last year. And then now I just happened to come in yesterday and heard that it was maybe going to be a permanent thing. And so I'm also asking that you guys take some more time considering this. I mean, it seems like you probably have a list of the rentals in town that you could send them letters, because I feel like this change, as people that are managing these rentals, we've already told these summer people, oh yeah, you can park on the street, you can have some extra cars there and have your rehearsal dinner in the backyard or whatever. We've said that that's okay and stuff. And some of us, the houses are old. One of the houses we take care of, and it doesn't have a parking spot on one side yet. And so I have gotten the paperwork to get one poured and talk to the clerk about what I need to do. But it would be great if we could just have a little time to do that, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that needs to now get a parking spot poured. So that's what I'm asking for. And also it wasn't real clear how they decided which areas there would be no parking. I did read this city council agenda item report, but just because it seems like maybe some of the other areas might have been better because of, have no parking there because there's a ditch there anyways, or, but yes, it would be, if you guys did decide to do no parking ever here, which I would prefer it if you did it more seasonally, or, I mean, you have the signs down here for the snow plowing that are seasonal, you know, like don't park here these times seasonally. Because I really don't think it's an issue in the off season. But however you do it, it would be great if more people knew about it, possibly with a letter or something to at least the people who have registered, you know, and certified their business, their short-term rentals and stuff like that. And then maybe do something about it in the fall. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you so much. Anyone else in the audience?
Hi, I'm Deb Gardner from 246 Spear Street, Lower Spear. We have, I'm not sure if anybody's aware, I know two of you guys are. We have a deer population problem in the city. And I can't keep them out of my yard from eating our.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jamie. We can only talk on agenda items only at this point, but you are,
Sorry.
yeah, you are welcome to speak at the end about anything else.
It's a little-
Yeah,
at the
Jamie
end.
gave me a nice reminder there, so I apologize. Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on agenda items only? Okay, all right, we'll move on to online. If there's anyone, I see someone with their hand raised, Christopher.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christopher Hauk. I'm owner 731 Pleasant Street. And I'm on here because I just found out about this 30 minutes ago that you're planning on voting to make my street no parking on both sides. This is troubling. Number one, I received no notice about this. I don't know. I've never been resident of any city where actions like this were taken without giving the residents, property owners, a notice like this. And so that's what's troubling, number one. Number two, yeah, I understand the streets and safety, and making one side of this street no parking makes total sense to me. But to come in and say no parking on both sides, I think is going too far. So I would appreciate it if we could see, I think, what the fire department, what their safety measures are, but I don't know why the push is for our street to be no parking on both sides. I don't know, other than safety, what other issue we're having here. When I'm there and I have my family, I have 6 parking spots in my driveway. But for instance, Thanksgiving, there's not enough parking there for my family and myself, and we have to park somewhere. So yeah, one side of the street I think is definitely a consideration, and I would appreciate your thoughts on this. Be a little more thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Anyone else online wish to speak on agenda items? Okay, we will move on then to our consent agenda. It's on page 3. Ryan, if you want to just mention, all of these are, you know, basically renewals, things that we've done in the past.
Yeah, certainly, Madam Mayor. So the first item on your consent agenda is approval of your regular meeting minutes of April 22nd, 2024. The second item is a request from the Garden Club to place a right-of-way sign their upcoming event. Next item is a Culver Street parking lot operations agreement. It's up for renewal, similar terms as previous years, with some additional kind of bonus dates for SCA related events if they're able to fill them. And I think Sunday is actually cut back time wise to 5 p.m. from the previous agreement as well. Spear Street launch ramp management agreement with Star of Saugatuck to manage kind of payment for the launch ramp and use of their restrooms. The Griffith Street and boat slip management agreement. These are transit slips that Sergeant Marina manages for us, and we split some costs there. Change order number 5 for 2023 street improvements. The work on Bridge Street is now complete. Some of the items came in higher than expected. a revocable license agreement for seating in the right of way for El Burrito Feliz, and then a revocable license agreement for seating in the right of way for New Holland Brewing Company. And one item, just to mention as well on the Culver Street parking lot agreement, the language that's in your packet is correct. We didn't turn off the comments that Jake had. I apologize on that. So the language was updated to reflect some of his comments back. So the language is correct there.
All right, if this time, could I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as approved or as presented. Second.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, good evening, everybody. I do want to make one correction in the minutes. The motion carried 5-2, not 5-1 on the 4th of July fireworks. So just a note there. And for the Culver Street parking lot operation agreement, I thought this was for a 3-year. I didn't know that we renew this every year, because when I talked with Liz Wilson at the school, she said she thought it was a longer period. So just curious.
So the last agreement was for 3 years,
Okay.
so it's expired.
Right.
The reason why I elected to bring, or my recommendation is to a 1-year agreement at this point is that one of your priorities for the year was to look at, evaluating parking and possibly paid parking. If something like that were implemented at some point involving kiosks or things like that, that would impact certainly the agreement that we have with the school. So I thought it was better to probably have a 1-year agreement, not knowing what kind of evaluation that, we'll have further as it relates to parking and, whether that involves a conversation of automating things or doing something, different along those lines.
Excellent.
So my other question was, I think you answered, is that were the questions in the red line version were answered, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so back to that question about the 1-year agreement. Is it really imminent that there's going to be a discussion about major changes to the parking in the SC, or not, pardon me, in the public lot? I understand what you're saying, but I don't recall us having any conversation yet about any imminent discussion on that use of that lot for paid parking or whatever some ideas might be.
So it was listed as a priority of yours for the year to look at. I agree that we haven't, started that evaluation or started that work. Maybe we do that this fall, depending on where the, how the caseload and the projects look. And if you want to, kind of begin that conversation, I have had, vendors approach the city as well with interest in automate, hey, are you willing to automate that lot? Sounds like you guys have kind of a staffing system set up where, a partnership with the school.
Yeah.
If you want to do a long agreement, that is certainly within your purview. I just, given all the unknowns, I thought a 1-year agreement was probably more appropriate in this case.
So I agree with Ryan in that we, might be seeing some changes. We've been talking about it with the planning commission, and that's, on your radar as far as working towards some parking improvements in our area. I think we can always include the school on their fundraising, though. That's just a conversation that we'll have, and we'll still, be able to talk with them about that. But this allows us to, as you mentioned, we might automate things. We might have, any number of different ideas going forward.
Is the application for the 1-year agreement, did Ms. Wilson indicate that it's very onerous on the school district to come to us to do, on a yearly basis? I can't imagine it's that heavy of a lift to do it every year.
In this case, the city prepares the agreement, so the work was
Right.
more so on our part. Obviously, they have a lot of work in filling shifts, and it was very helpful. She shared the spreadsheet, kind of sign up spreadsheet with the dates. And so once I had that, it was helpful to then kind of plug things in and
Okay.
so.
Is there anything else as far as
Yeah.
discussion items?
Yeah, item D, Spear Street launch ramp management agreement. There's a particular comment in the note from the treasurer that quote unquote, gross revenues are way down from historical amounts. I understand we have to go into the year, we have to have an agreement for management of that for this year, but I really will ask that this come back for a workshop in the fall, because this needs to be put out for bid. I just think we could be doing better with the launch ramp management. Based on that comment alone, gross revenues are way down from historical amounts. We're always talking about ways to find additional revenue. This is one that has produced additional revenue in the past, and we're clearly missing on something.
What are the typical revenues for the Spear
Well,
Street
they've been
launch?
up to.
Over
they've been up to-
$1,000.
This year was $650. It's split 50-50 with the management. Past years, we've seen $14,000.
Yeah, there's boats on that thing all the time, and they just must not be collecting the dues.
Yeah, so
It's voluntary. So if people, if they forget to do it, you know, it's hard to enforce. And the other difficulty is, once you move your trailer, it could be anywhere in town. And, you know, like, for example, at Schultz, you know, over in Douglas, you know, everybody kind of leaves their trailer right there. So the sheriff can kind of tell or the Douglas cops can kind of tell who's paid up and who's not paid up. This actually kind of goes to parking. I mean, this has been a lot of this stuff is tied to parking. You know, a pickup truck with trailer takes up,
3-4 spots.
it
Yeah.
does indeed. So
Yeah.
there's that issue. And also, I mean, I do think some boat owners are probably dissuaded because there is no immediate parking associated with that launch. So there's that issue too.
Yeah.
So I agree with Russ, though. I think
think a lot of people-
it's worth a discussion because
Yeah.
it is complicated. It may not be serving its purpose, and it may be it may actually be doing more harm than good in terms of the parking issue.
parking.
Just as
Yeah.
someone who uses that ramp all the time, I pay for I pay for an annual pass,
Yeah.
which is fairly inexpensive, especially if you live here. But the fact of the matter is, it's really hard to back your boat in that area because it's just too busy. So I think, you know, I send people to Schultz just because it's easier to get in and out of there and there's better parking. But that being said, that's probably why some of the revenues are down.
Yeah, we just need to have I think we need to have a conversation about it.
No, I agree.
sounds good.
It's worth the conversation, or maybe even just.
I think it ties into parking. I
It
agree, it's a
does. And maybe
conversation
we
that
do,
ties to
maybe
parking.
we do reimagine what that's all
Yep.
about. So, yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
anything else? Okay, this is a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, moving on to staff reports, boards, commissions, and committees, city managers report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You touched on the kind of the update. I was going to touch on this, that we have that ribbon cutting and opening of the playground scheduled for Friday afternoon at 3:15. So.
Right, does anyone have any questions for Ryan? Go ahead.
I was excited to see that the staff compensation study is in the works. When do you think we'll have that data, and would any changes that result from it, I'm assuming we would factor that into the next fiscal year salaries?
Certainly. So consultant's actually going to be here at City Hall tomorrow, meeting with each of our staff members, kind of understand their positions more and kind of see how their job duties are relating to their job descriptions and kind of take a look at our full benefits package. And I'm planning on before the end of the fiscal year having his reports, and then certainly we'll kind of take a look at that data and work to incorporate that into our personnel policies and modifications next year if need be.
That's great. And the Moby chair is really cool. It's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really great to have that.
Yes, and a huge shout out to the Disability Network, the Lake Shore. They did all the fundraising for it and got all the donations and selected Saugatuck's Beach to bring this here. So a huge thank you to them for their work on this. And our deputy clerk, Sarah, worked with them on this project. So.
Great.
Awesome.
Anyone else? All right, moving on to the treasurer's report. Is Peter online?
He's off today, so
Is-
yeah.
All right, if we don't have one of the staff members or anyone here, feel free to send any questions through Ryan. You can do so tonight or, through an email. Planning and zoning.
Nothing in particular to add, Madam Mayor, unless there's questions.
Any questions? All right, Department of Public Works. I know Scott is here. All right, anyone have any questions for Scott? All right, thank you, Scott.
And I'll just note, Mayor, too, I mean, his team, when I'd done my report last week, I mean, the estimate was like probably a couple weeks out still, and they still had, quite a bit of work to do. And I mean, they have been working really hard since last week to prepare their playground. In fact, just at Parks and
Yesterday morning.
even
we
yesterday
were
morning, he's
here,
like,
yeah.
I'm not quite sure exactly, but I mean, he called me, yesterday afternoon, was like, I think we're ready for Friday. We'll be ready by Friday afternoon. So big thank you to
Fantastic.
Scott and his team on that.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to Sheriff's Department.
Nothing to be.
Okay. Engineers, John Moxie.
He's here. If you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for John? Okay, moving on then to boards, commissions, committees, Fire District Administration Board. Dan, if you have any highlights you would like to highlight with your report.
Dan Fox, City Representative to the Fire Administration, for the Administrative Board of the Fire District. Do have a few highlights. From the meeting on the 24th or 20th of May. April statistics were complete at that point. Incidents were up 17%, which continues to set new records. Construction delays off of the roundabout still exist. The chief's opinion is that they are manageable. They're not horrible. So, and as they move farther along, the construction people said that they get to a certain point where the base, I guess, is in or whatever's in. And if they hear sirens, they'll pull their stuff so that the trucks can get through if necessary. Kind of an interesting, because we don't talk about it all that often, but what they call the department's fire prevention group or sub-department, whatever, reported for the month, just to give you the flavor for what goes on there. 31 rental inspections by the fire district people. 22 hours at Douglas Elementary with the kids for a host of things they do with the kids, like teaching them how to report something and what their address is and how to get out of a smoky room and so forth. We also do CO2 and smoke detector installations at no cost, not for properties generating rental income. So, but other than those, and then there's during April, Wendy Bales, who's one of the EMTs, did CPR class for 14 people, I think at the Pike Cottages, Sean Steele's place. I don't know that everybody was from there, but that's where they did things. So, and then my community service, this district completed an extensive, excuse me, inventory of the fire hydrants in the entire district. So all 3 jurisdictions, and that's available. I think the city probably has a copy of it by now. Should, if you don't, it's easy to get. Largely that was occasioned by the need for it, or need to look at it again, was occasioned by the fire in Douglas on Blue Star, where they had a fire hydrant that was too low and they can't spin. They need to turn a wrench. If they keep pulling it off, it takes valuable time. So they were checking for that. And I know Douglas is in the process of what'll probably be a multi-year correction of a number of those. So many a year, because it can be a costly kind of adventure, but well worthwhile. As you saw in something I sent and maybe elsewhere, the ambulance committee completed our work, and the fire district signed a 6-month trial program with Life EMS in Grand Rapids. I like to use terms like this, but we are absolutely thrilled with this. Absolutely thrilled. They are a first-class operation, first-class people, first-class leadership, Michigan company, and on and on. And I hope you take time to, that's why I sent this. I hope you take time to read through this, because it's pretty compelling. Really a wonderful operation. Our special event fee committee, where we're evaluating, subcommittee of the board that's evaluating the charges we intend to make for fire district assistance in traffic closures or whatever, for management of things like the Mount Baldhead Challenge, not to pick on one, but as an example. That committee work is ongoing. The gist of it was, as of this meeting, was that chances are there would be a group of primarily national holidays that would be exempted from this. So parade, Memorial Day parade, 4th of July parade, exempted, whatever. We're more concerned with the sort of growth of additional mini events that require fire district time and for which there's no compensation. So that. And then our next meeting is the one I've spoken to you about before on June 17th, to which you are all invited at 5 o'clock. We approved provisionally our budget for the coming year. That budget will be subject of a public hearing on that date. Earlier, I think the budget hearing is earlier at 4 o'clock. If not, it's at 5 o'clock. We will meet at 4 o'clock, so you're welcome to both meetings if you want. But the group session with all three jurisdictions is the one at 5 o'clock. And I think that's it.
Anyone have any questions for Dan? All right, Dan, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Gregory, Interurban Board.
We just celebrated our last meeting with Phyllis Ike, who sat in with Becky as her last official meeting with us, and we had cupcakes and gave her a little, another little party for her there at the Interurban office at our last meeting. Becky, of course, is our full-time gal, and she's a great fit for us. She served for us for many years with the drivers. She's got a great relationship with everybody there, great relationship with the community. Phyllis will still be helping out a little bit when we do our first audit. So she'll be helping Becky when we get into audit time this fall and in some other big projects. So she's always reachable, but she's officially retired. Just a reminder, we're open till 7 p.m. throughout the week, and we're now open late until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays.
Any questions for Gregory? All right, moving on to Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority. I don't see Barry, but anything you want to mention?
Yeah, I can mention that back on May 17th, Cal Lake held a special meeting to kind of discuss a draft water operations agreement, something that Eagle's requiring and asking for. So the managers had met a while back and kind of presented kind of a skeleton framework of some thoughts that things that the constituent municipalities would like to see in the agreement. And so Cal Lake's attorney kind of presented to them that initial draft language, got the board's feedback. They're kind of updating that to then return to the constituent municipalities to have some further discussion and kind of negotiate that and move that process forward.
All right, any questions about that? All right, moving on to Harbor Authority, Logan.
Nothing to report.
All right, thanks, Logan. Let's see, Zoning Board of Appeals.
They had no meeting this month.
Okay. Historic District, Russ.
Next meeting is Thursday, June 6th.
Okay, Planning Commission.
I'm hoping in June at some point we'll have more data on the short-term rental, sort of the baseline data on where the rental properties are. As I can't remember if it was at planning or here, but our city manager in waiting and planning director went through all of the work that's been done with Granicus. So huge work on the part of the short-term rental task force and planning commission that is coming to life. And hopefully we'll get that final bits of data soon.
All right. Any questions on that? All right, Parks and Public Works.
Nothing to report other than the playground is opening on Friday at 3:15, as we discussed. I'll bring the popsicles.
Okay,
We're
very
gonna
good.
stick.
Any questions for Helen? All right, Tri-Community Non-Motorized Trail Study Committee.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Ryan and I met with the consultants, the Friends, and Daniel from the township also joined. Douglas was unable to join, but just went over the project. Short story, preliminary design work slightly behind schedule. Still though within the window to go out to bid in October, November timeframe of 2024. And construction start in 2025 is still on schedule. Did I miss anything, Ryan?
Nope, and so far the construction estimates are on target. And pushed as far as budgets on the overall trail design. So they'll be kind of coming with some updated information on that and as we look to the construction engineering phase and bringing forth that proposal.
Yeah, the decision to approach or to plan for a street light and to try to get that grant, that obviously threw them a bit of a new bit of data that they needed to factor into their planning. So that's influencing a little bit of the cost there. So we'll get a finer point on that shortly, though.
Okay, any questions? All right. Request for payment, none. We're on to item number 12, approval of accounts payable. Do I have a motion?
I'll
Mayor,
make a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $137,647.94.
I will second.
All right, any discussion? All right, it's a roll call.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, no introduction of ordinances, no unfinished business. We are on to item 15A under new business. This is page 58 in your packet. Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At your last meeting, we had talked about water system improvements and we touched on the fact that the water main under Maple is definitely in need of replacement and the road is as well. So we have kind of that path where the city's applying for drinking water state revolving loan fund dollars. This is kind of a parallel path specific to the Maple Street work. We're actually next week at your work session planning on bringing forth an engineering proposal to kind of start that engineering work needed to replace the road and the water main. Another funding opportunity, grant funding opportunity for Maple Street here is the category B grant funds through MDOT. We had applied last year actually for this same project and didn't receive funding. We're told that MDOT funds or this particular program, they pick new folks each time. And we haven't been selected yet. We've had some really competitive projects from our perspective. And so we're asking for your support to submit an application tonight. And it's our else to kind of turn it over to Mr. Moxie if there's anything else that he'd like to add.
John?
Yeah, most of you are familiar with this program. It's one of the only ones that's really available to funding local road projects like this. So this is our second iron in the fire, as city manager mentioned. If we're lucky enough to get both of them, we'll have to look at whether we can combine them or just pick one or the other, whatever's most attractive. But we've had some success with pairing this with programs like the DWSRF. So happy to answer any questions. The application looks a lot like it did last year because Ryan mentioned it is pretty much the same project. The other one I just did want to point out is that the estimate that's shown in your memo here is really just the road portion of the project. The application has a more complete estimate, but it's really just a budgetary estimate. We really think we should go through a planning phase to figure out what it is this corridor would look like if we're spending the kind of money that we're talking about on it.
Okay,
Mayor,
go ahead.
I'd like to make the motion to approve resolution number 240529-A to establish a request for funding, designate an agent, attest to the existence of funds, and commit to implementing a maintenance program for roadway improvements on Maple Street funded by the Transportation Economic Development Fund Category B program.
Second. All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor. Hello, John. Welcome to the meeting. So the amount that's in the description, the $2.5 million, it says it's for roadway and water main. Is that, so did I understand what you said? Is that the 2.5 is an estimate for just the road itself? Not the-
2.5 is the road, the water main engineering,
Okay,
pretty much everything but the sidewalk. We're picturing this as probably a $2 to $3 million project, depending on what pieces and parts go into it.
okay, thank you. And then the second question is, so when we apply for a maximum of $250,000, which is just a drop in the bucket, it's literally 10% of a total, probably less than 10% of the total project. Do we then get committed to, and we have to do a match of 573,000, do we then commit ourselves to doing the entire road, or is this going to be phased in? Because $2.5 to $3 million, even with $250,000 in grant money, is still a significant amount of money for the city.
Yeah,
Maybe
totally
it's a better
agree.
discussion for next week, so. But. just-
Yeah, it is a corridor that lends itself to some phasing. That's certainly something we could talk through if and when we get this funding. Definitely on the table.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, John.
Anyone else? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Anderson.
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to new business item number 15B. This is on page 88, all the way to 88 in your packet. I'm going to move myself there real quick before we move on. Okay, Ryan.
Yeah, Madam Mayor. So this resolution actually relates to Maple Street. As you know, there's construction going on in Blue Star, and Blue Star is shut down for traffic right now. And so we have a lot of additional traffic on Maple Street. The official detour route is 196. especially for those heavy, semi-related trucks. Unfortunately, we're receiving some complaints that there is heavier truck traffic that's traveling down Maple Street. Wasn't designed for heavier truck traffic on this regular, on a regular basis. The engineers expressed some concern about it further damaging the roadway as well as some infrastructure underneath, if we continue to see heavy truck traffic like this. So, we had some emails back and forth with the township, ourselves, the sheriff's office, Department of Public Works. And so staff's recommendation is to prohibit heavy truck traffic. Emergency vehicles would be exempt, but essentially kind of those heavier trucks with that exceed 5 tons on any axle. So
Okay, before we get into discussion, do we have a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve resolution number 240529-B, a resolution to prohibiting heavy truck traffic on Maple Street.
A second.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. So, has this been discussed with the sheriff's office in terms of enforcement? Because this, I can see where this would be a lot to have to try to manage.
So Sergeant Haas was involved with the emails and the discussions. He's read the resolution, was comfortable with it. We, worked with legal to review what was necessary to pass to make sure that, this was enforceable. There's essentially a state, Michigan Motor Vehicle Code allows for local municipalities to pass this type of a resolution to limit, this type of traffic on its local streets. So we have.
So is a situation that you've got semi trucks that are just bypassing I-196 and going down Maple Street to go to Douglas, for instance, or go to downtown Saugatuck, which they would normally go in Holland anyway. But what I'm thinking is that what types of trucks are actually going down there? Are there, because there's probably some deliveries that I'm assuming would go down through there,
Yeah.
which would be exempted.
Right. So our engineer can tell you that, he would have preferred probably even less weight. Trucks that were more delivery style, and he can speak to this, but my understanding is that the weight of these trucks that would be limited, would be prohibited, wouldn't involve delivery trucks or garbage trucks or those types of things. It really is kind of more semi-based. Mr. Moxie, is that accurate?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I've seen firsthand some of the gravel trucks and things that I was shocked were trying to use Maple Street. So this is really intended just to catch those, not your Amazon deliveries, not your FedEx garbage trucks, things like that.
Will we have signage? Okay.
And if I may, so the route is to exit 36 then, as opposed to exit 41 for the trucks, the heavy trucks?
They basically need to go to the Douglas exit or.
Yeah.
vice versa.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, they're supposed to, be going around using the 196, correct?
Okay.
Are they gonna do that?
In fact, well,
They're gonna get a ticket.
Holland Street is perfectly fine.
That's-
I
you
feel
know.
like Holland Street, I take Holland Street. I don't know why people aren't doing Holland Street. but
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, obviously we have Cisco deliveries, food
Yeah.
truck deliveries that are full semis. But they should be taking Holland Street if they're going into town, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, I
So-
I think this gives the sheriff's department the latitude to go after the egregious instances when they see it now. It will give them a tool
absolutely.
to,
Okay.
change behaviors. And I think anything we can do to give the folks on Maple Street
Yeah.
some relief, I think, and to protect our infrastructure as well.
Any other discussion? All right, it's a roll call.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, we're on to item 15C. This is on page 91. Let me get back to it. Ryan, if you want to set this up.
Yeah, certainly, Madam Mayor. So, as you know, your short-term rental task force met last year for several months, and one of their recommendations was that, they'd heard some concerns about some streets having, parking-related issues and emergency vehicles having difficulty accessing certain properties because of the amount of vehicles parked on certain streets. And so they made a recommendation to evaluate that. And so the Department of Public Works and the city engineer kind of had some discussions in the fall, and our city engineer prepared a report. A few months ago, I asked our Department of Public Works and Fire Department to kind of take a look at the engineer's recommendations and kind of review and provide their thoughts. And so kind of a summary of the chief's analysis and Mr. Herbert's analysis is provided in their recommendations for streets that should be limited to parking on one side or the other. It does include a no parking recommendation for Pleasant Street. This was reviewed by you at a work session meeting a couple months ago, and then we had some additional pieces to work through as far as, is this needing a resolution or an ordinance? And then there was also concerns related to one particular property on Pleasant Street that actually has no parking options without street parking and kind of working through a possible solution for that. That's actually one of your next agenda items.
Okay, so at this time, the sample motion is on page 93, if anyone would like to make a motion.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
motion to approve resolution number 240529-C to authorize no parking signage for improved emergency vehicle access.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I appreciate the three citizens that have shown up to speak about this evening. I am opposed to putting this into motion because of that particular issue for Pleasant Street. I don't recall that being no parking on either side of, was that in the original motions?
Absolutely.
Street's a different.
No, I understand, but the entirety of Pleasant Street, no parking on either side.
Was in our workshop.
The fact that there are three people here this evening that are expressing concern that they didn't learn about this until literally just before the meeting, I think, in my opinion, is a time to step back for a moment and make sure everybody understands exactly what this is going to mean for Pleasant Street particularly. The one side of the streets, the other streets, fully on board with that, but the Pleasant one's got me concerned. And especially when we have three citizens that come in and have expressed concern about this. I don't see the urgency to get this on the books tonight. I would suggest we hold on this and make sure everybody's notified so they have a chance to give feedback on it.
Okay.
That's my
Anyone?
thought.
Yep.
I have to agree. I'm on board with all of this. It's just the two sides on Pleasant Street. And because we have three property owners today that spoke to us about it, there's not a lot of houses on Pleasant Street to begin with. So if this was changed to one side of Pleasant Street, I could be happy with the rest of it for now. I know we did speak about this a while ago. This has been on our workshop.
Months.
Yeah,
And I do remember talking about it.
I had
but-
this.
But the residents today has made a difference to me.
Yeah, I have the same concern on Pleasant Street, just to have both sides. I brought it up as well, when we talked about it in the workshop. We were told that even on one side of the street, that there wasn't enough room for emergency vehicles. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's tight. So I probably would invite Mr. Herbert to come up. I know he actually went out and measured the streets and took a look at it as it related to one of his trucks that was out there and yeah.
Yeah, that road looks a lot different from the seat of a dump truck or any sizable vehicle, I'll tell you that. So, if a lot of times if there are cars parked on either side of it, even for snow plowing, you're within inches, and that's just with our dump truck. So, I don't know, in comparison to like a fire apparatus or other vehicles, I would imagine they might not even be able to make it. I know for sure that there's been times where I couldn't snow plow the street if there was a car parked on it. So, generally speaking, if they're hugging the curb really tight, then it's not much of an issue. It gives a few inches of room, but maybe a foot or so, foot and a half at best. But if that car is parked any distance at all from that curb, it is extremely tight. And so when we went out and looked at it, we looked at it from different angles. I even parked my regular pickup truck on the road and just kind of measured it out. And I can't remember the exact amount of feet, but it was still very, very tight. So for that reason, we made the justification, but I certainly can understand. Feel free to disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's what we heard from the fire department and now from DPW. And I understand why people would like just one side of that street. So you're saying that even when people are parked just on the one side, it's difficult to get around.
It's tight. Like, we do brush and leaf collection on that road in the summer. There's a lot of landscaping companies that'll park on the shoulder or I'm sorry, on the side of the road with their landscaping trailer. And there's definitely been times where we had to basically stop where they're parked, do one side of the street and then go around and then finish the other side of the street before we leave.
Okay.
So, I mean, for me, the first and foremost concern is for public safety. I have to defer to the fire department on this one. You know, they're the experts. They know what their equipment's capable of. So I'm siding with the fire department on this and their recommendation. I think the chief did a very thoughtful analysis. Indeed, we talked about this last year as a council and we piloted this. I can't recall if we piloted it on Pleasant Street or not, but we did pilot it during the Venetian weekend. Scott, you may remember if we also did it on Pleasant. So this did happen during another busy weekend in town. The signs are up now, as you know, the temporary signs. So I don't see how we cannot side on the side of public safety on this one, if that's what our fire department is recommending. You know, the long-term solution, you know, and this may not be popular either, would be to widen Pleasant Street when we do the lead pipes. That will be unpopular with some people, you know, and because you could probably only widen it on one side. If anyone that goes down that street will know. But I don't see any way we can do this without creating a risk to the public by not creating safe egress and ingress for emergency responders.
I have to, if
Go ahead,
I
yeah.
have to agree with Member Dean. No one takes it likely to remove parking spots from the city. Clearly, parking is a huge issue for our city and it's in short supply, but public safety comes first. And the idea also just that you couldn't get a vehicle down there, it's unconscionable. We have to decide on, and if we can come up with a better solution going forward, widening the street or whatever, that makes sense. But at this point, I mean, no one's taking any other street on that way. It just makes sense. And it's unfortunate, but it's just what you have to do to the residents and the public safety come before extra parking for short-term rentals or whatever else needs to be done down there.
You know, and well, I'm very sympathetic to people that are inconvenienced by it, but once again, public safety, I believe, trumps all of this. Last summer, I was at a wedding down in the Indiana Dunes area. And once again, you know, small cottages that were built, you know, as vacation destinations, and now they're being rented out for large groups. I was attending a wedding and the wedding party had to, you know, have cars off-site and we had to shuttle people to the beach house where the event was going on. This is a challenge that a lot of resort and destination communities have, but once again, I'm not sure how anybody can not support protecting public safety.
Agreed.
Yeah, I got a lot of support emails reaching out saying that they were really in favor of at least the one side, not from Pleasant Street, but from the other places because of emergency vehicles and an actual incident where they had difficulty getting to someone who was in cardiac arrest. So that really spoke to me. Pleasant Street's another, you know, issue because it's both sides, but
And it's curved too.
yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
the
you
other
can't get
right
off.
lanes,
Yeah.
you've got that extra area
Mhm.
off the road,
Right.
but it is curved, it is narrow. We do have to make sure we can get an ambulance through there.
Yeah,
If something's
yeah.
happening to a resident or a vacationer on that road, we've got to get an ambulance through there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I understand the importance of that, and safety does take precedence. I mean, you know,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I really respect our fire district and our chief, and I don't want to be on the city council that didn't create a safe street if somebody had an emergency and needed an ambulance or a fire truck.
So
Okay.
the snow plow is the hardest one. Are those wider than the fire trucks even?
Well, I think when we put our one-way, the front snow plows on our trucks, I gotta think we're pretty comparable to fire equipment. Or even if we do our brush and leaf collection and we have what we call our leaf pusher on the front of it, but that doesn't count because it's kind of a custom made thing that we made, but definitely with the one-way snow plows, anyone that's ridden with me before, and two, you know, if you want to get some, you know, practical eyes on it, by all means, reach out. Happy to drive you over there in a dump truck and so you can take a look at it from that perspective too. But it's that, you know, our snow plows are 11 feet wide. They're on a slight angle, but they're 11 feet wide.
Okay.
Can we get creative with any sort of like
Not with curbs.
15-minute parking somewhere or something to?
yeah.
I
not
get
gonna-
frustrated with
That's
just
not gonna
like,
help the short-term rentals though. I think that's the big thing is the people with the short-term rentals on Pleasant.
help for a second? Thank you. Like someone dropping off their groceries or something, if they're, a delivery, there's something.
Yeah, I
and
was
a
just
simple
thinking on Pleasant Street, like putting on your hazards and saying like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be out of here in a
parking
second.
or something.
They
Yeah.
have two parking places off the street at that curve. There are two parking places, right? That are off street, right?
And that's for the next
They're-
item
yeah, they're
on the
there.
agenda.
Right at that
Designated
curve,
for that.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
house.
Gregory, this is for the next agenda item
That's right,
for,
yeah.
yeah. But go ahead, Holly.
Yeah, I would think, I mean, if somebody puts their hazards on, people can get their groceries in.
Yeah. And if they're unloading or, any of those things, especially, there's going to be a lot of cars at some of those vacation rentals because they hold a lot of people on Pleasant Street. If they, their hazards on and, try to find another place to park because you can park around the block. There's options. Plus, most of the homes, all of the homes there have parking. Most of them I saw at least 4 parking spots in each of the homes, if not more. So, I mean, you have to park behind each other and it's really inconvenient, but it's just something to, think
It is a
about.
challenge because there are a lot of short-term rentals on that street. So
There are.
I feel the parking pain,
Yeah.
but
Okay. Well, this is, yeah, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, great comments and I appreciate the creativity on this. The thing I'm still troubled by is that 3 people came tonight and said, this is the first I'm hearing about it. And that's, I think, incumbent on us as a city to say we can do a better job at making sure people understand what's coming. Not to say that it might not change the final decision, but I'm troubled when I hear people come and say, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Sign up for the email blasts.
Council member, just a moment. The other thing that is of concern here is that Main Street, as an example, is not even as wide as Pleasant Street. And we have parking on one side of Main Street, the north side, and the south side, no parking. So I'm again thinking Pleasant Street itself, how is that different from Main Street? It's curbed. That would be the one difference that I can see. But the point is that it's the only street on here that's no parking on both sides. So what makes it different from Main Street, for instance? And the others, again, I don't have the measurements offhand. Secondly, is that it was brought up by one of the speakers, is that this is, the way it's written, it's year round. And I think this is something we should be writing this resolution to say this is in effect from, X time to X time or X date to X date, something like that, similar to our snowplow ordinance. This should not be a year-round solution.
Go ahead, Holly.
at least on Main Street, when there's something going on at the high school, I mean, it's like July 4th weekend. So, and I disagree with you on that.
Well, and I think we still need emergency vehicles to get through year round. So there's that.
Part of it, if I may, part of it too, like to your point, Mr. White, is, we have some signage up by the Saugatuck High School that says no parking, standing, or forgot the other term, shoot. Yeah, well, yeah, what is it? Geez, I just had it. But anyway, it's basically it stops, it allows you to stop, put your hazards on, bring your groceries in or whatnot, when you put up, versus just putting up straight up no parking. So it's no parking, standing, or stopping. So that would, you could kind of get around the whole put your hazards on and bring your groceries in if you just simply kept it no parking signs.
Yeah, and there is a piece of your streets ordinances that basically states that somebody can't place anything in the street, including a vehicle. But it shall not be deemed to prohibit the temporary obstructions as may be incidental to the expeditious movement of articles and things to and from an abutting premise. So if you're quickly dropping something off, nor to the lawful parking of vehicles. So if it's obviously, if you're lawfully parked, great. It's an expeditious moving of articles, you're fine to do that too. So I think we have some protections.
Remind me again, is Main Street, there's curbs on, no, so Pleasant is the only one with curbs on both sides, which makes it really hard you can't park off the side.
Right. But there's a section of Main Street that does have, I think it's in between St. Joseph and Griffith, where there is some parking on the shoulder where the road is paved wider.
Okay. All
Feels-
right.
Feels like we haven't reached the ideal solution on this. Obviously, we have to be able to get a fire truck. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
And it's a disaster. I've walked my dogs all over through there, and when there's cars on both sides, it's a total nightmare. Unfortunately, like, I mean, I do think we're gonna have some property owners that are pretty upset about this
I
and
know.
that don't share the same priorities. So is this like a Band-Aid solution to get it? Is that how we kind of present this a little bit to figure out? Cause we're probably gonna have to widen the road if we have to have parking, we have to have emergency services.
Mhm.
And it's gonna be an expensive project.
But,
too, But is that the goal? We
but-
probably have to figure that out.
I just don't know why back in the day when they put curbs on both sides of Pleasant Street, they didn't make the road wider, but I wasn't around. I mean, I was around, but I wasn't part of
Yeah.
those discussions.
If the fire department can come to this body with a solution, I'd be happy to take this up at another date, but
Amend it, yeah.
amend it. Or if we get, some massive grant where we can, when we do the lead service lines on Pleasant, we can widen Pleasant to make it compliant with.
Have those been replaced on Pleasant though?
That's a good question for Mr. Moxie, and he can kind of speak to how long ago the curbing was put in. I mean, certainly we were trying to do some probably stormwater improvements and
Yeah.
Unintended.
John, do you know how long ago?
Yeah, I believe Pleasant Street was within the last 15 years or so, is when it was built. I'm sure I wasn't really part of that project that rebuilt it, but I'm sure part of the discussion was trying to limit the footprint of the road. And the curbing was probably a drainage improvement at the time. Certainly that's all subject for discussion, to making changes and additions as we do other projects.
Okay.
I mean, I'm 100% in favor of creating more parking in town. But on the other hand of this balance beam, there's a public safety issue that has been identified by the Saugatuck Douglas Township Fire District. I don't see how we cannot take action on a public safety matter that frankly, is a ticking time bomb, something, it's an accident waiting to happen. So until, I see no alternative other than to implement this. And then if we have to revisit it, if the fire department comes back and said, we've come up with a solution on Pleasant Street, we're going to get narrow little baby fire trucks that they use in Amsterdam or something. I don't know, but I just can't see myself voting against something that improves people's safety while they're visiting our town or living in our town.
And I will say, again, this was part of very long discussions with the short-term rental task force. And this was brought up throughout many of those meetings. The fire chief had asked, that we have no parking on certain sides of the streets, no parking on both sides for Pleasant. This has been a conversation that's gone on for a long time. I do feel terrible that people didn't know that this could happen. But we're at this point where we have had many discussions about it. So with that being said, we do have a motion on the table. And if we would like to have a roll call on that.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
No for the Pleasant Street portion.
Muncy,
No, because of Pleasant Street.
Stanton,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2.
Yeah, and I hope that we can continue this discussion. There are a lot of questions that are coming up with this and hopefully we can, answer some of those questions and then be better, about getting the word out to our residents when something like this comes up. Hopefully we can be better about getting the word out specifically to some of those residents. Ryan, is that something that we can do in the future on these types of things?
Certainly,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Can I ask one question before we move on?
Yeah.
Ryan, how long do you think it will take for, to put permanent signs up? I did, like others, got a lot of positive feedback, on the Hill for the temporary.
So that's a good question for Mr. Herbert. I'm not sure what the turnaround time is on receiving them, and then his crew obviously will be placing them. So
Yeah, if I'd have to order some galvanized signposts and signage. We get those out of Portage, Michigan. The signs are a pretty quick turnaround. I'm just not sure if we have enough galvanized signposts at the garage right now. We don't order those all too often. So they're more for like replacements. So if I had to take a stab in the dark, I'd say maybe a month or so, month and a half.
Will we keep the temporary signs up on the Hill until the permanent signs go up?
Yeah, that's.
I
the
don't believe
intent.
there are any temporary signs on Pleasant right now.
Yeah, not unpleasant, but on the other, like, the Hill's got signs
Mhm.
all over. Will we keep those up?
Yeah, I think that's the intent. Yep, until we can get the permanent signage in place. And one question you did have after your work session, I apologize, I didn't mention it during my report, that Scott reached out to find out what the cost of these are. And so the signage portion is about $1,000. So not a huge cost. I don't know how much the posts are going to be, but probably minimal.
There'll be a little bit more, maybe, 1,000 or 1,500, I would guess.
Okay. All right. All right. Moving on then to new business item number 15D. This is page 97. Ryan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as we were evaluating whether the recommendation for no parking on either side of Pleasant Street, there's one particular home at 649 Pleasant Street that actually has no off-street parking at all on the property. In fact, a lot of the home actually kind of encroaches into the right-of-way area. So I reached out to the owners to kind of explain that this is a recommendation that's potentially coming. The council's discussed it and kind of asked them, hey, what do you do for parking now? Do you have an arrangement with one of your neighbors? They don't. And they explained to me that there's kind of this bump out area that's on the next page of the memo that they use. And talking with the city engineer and looking at the survey work that was done when the road was last repaved, this is in the city right of way. It's something that was kind of repaved as part of the last project. It's been a space there that's been there for some time. So talk with legal counsel about the city's ability to kind of license this particular area to particular property owner, given the nature of the public safety concerns with getting vehicles down there, no parking, and the public health and safety aspects of that. Felt that this might be a good solution for that particular property owner. They're agreeable to paying for half of the preparation of this agreement, as well as the signage that needs would need to go in place to kind of indicate that would be some sort of permit parking only through their license.
All right. It's on page 98 is the sample motion. Do I have a motion?
Yes. Madam Mayor, motion to approve the revocable license agreement with 649 Pleasant regarding parking in the right of way.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just more of a point of order on this one. So if the previous amendment had not passed, this would have been moved, correct?
Well, then, yeah, at that point, you could have just chosen not to take it up or.
Right. So we're probably going to get some other requests like this from some other properties on Pleasant Street, I can imagine. So.
Yeah.
just for a-
That leads to my question is, I've been down this road many times, but correct me if I'm wrong, is this the only residence that does not have off-street parking?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
my understanding.
It is the only one that does not have off-street parking. And Scott's nodding. Okay, thanks, Scott. And this dedicates them one or two spots? Two spots. Okay.
And this
Um,
is, do we know, this is a historic home? Do we know? I mean, it looks historic, but I mean, it's very unusual because it is on the cliff. It's right on the ridge there. And there really isn't a spot for them to even create parking. I mean, I'm sure they could try over the years, and make something pretty darn expensive, but, yeah.
They could have an expensive option. I think they'd probably still have a need to have some sort of right of way improve. A lot of them, I understand, like the decks and maybe a portion of the home is even in the right of way with where the right of way lines are at. So there would still need to be some approval on your part even for that.
Okay.
I think
Yeah. Yeah, I would just comment on that house. So that's not in the historic district, but it's a historic home. However, I remember growing up and never thought there'd ever be a house built on Pleasant Street, period. And the fact that there's many homes built that have, so I can imagine at some point that this house may be sold and torn down and they'll figure out a way to get parking off street. So history tells me that this is probably going to change at some point. So.
All right. Any other discussion?
No, it's a revocable license. I see the two spots now in the draft
Mhm.
agreement and it's revocable.
Correct. Yeah, very much revocable. It's not a property right or a property interest. In fact, I just had that discussion with the owner. And it's been made very clear. And this doesn't necessarily run with the land. I mean, that new owner would have to agree to even transferring it to a new owner.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I don't want to leave somebody on Pleasant Street without any parking spot. I mean, you know, this is a unique situation. So I think, you know, I think that this is a reasonable solution for this particular property, given the unique nature of it.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is two properties, parking spots kind of equitable? Some houses like only have one and now they don't get one, and somebody doesn't have one, so now they get two.
I don't think there's anyone there that has only one spot. I
Most-
think
oh,
that they'll-
like,
The house,
because I'm on that street all the time, everyone on that street has like at least 4 parking spots. I've just, because I walk that street all the time, I just happen to know.
Okay.
A lot of them have even more parking than that. Yeah.
so the house immediately to the north, which is also almost like a
Mhm.
Bavarian cottage, that has 2 spaces or just
Yeah,
one?
it goes down like this and there's parking and they have a garage. So you could open up the garage, have
Out
2
just to the
spots.
north?
The one that's brown and orange.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah,
It's-
they have,
it's in
they have
between.
parking that goes boop like that.
Garage.
And then there's the gingerbread house, but that has parking as well. I mean,
That's the one I'm
I
thinking
know the
of.
whole house.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking of is, and I think they've only
It's
got.
behind my house. That's the reason why I
Yeah.
know
Well,
where
no, I'm thinking,
everything
no,
is.
this one, the one I'm thinking about is not behind your house. It's
Yeah.
right next to the
Yeah,
house on the big house on the corner. Anyway, I'll have to go up there and
Okay.
take a look. It just seems to me
Alright.
like it's only got one spot, but anyway.
all right. Is there anyone, any other discussion about this? All right, this is voice vote. So all those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Moving on to item 15E. This is on page 102 of your packet. Let me get there.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to the, make a motion to the agreement. Does this make sense? To approve, thank you, Jamie. Motion to approve the agreement to indemnify and provide insurance coverage for the July 5th fireworks display.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? No discussion, that's great. All right, this is also a voice vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we are on to public comment on anything you would like to talk about. So if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, and thank you for your patience. And again, if you could just state your name and where you live.
I'm Deb Gardner and I live at 246 Forest here. I don't know if anybody else except these 2 guys here realize that.
If you want to bring your microphone just down slightly, perfect.
Yeah.
That's going to help.
We
Yeah,
have
that's
a,
great.
we have a deer population problem within the city, really bad. I can't keep them out of my yard. I've had to fence it in. They've eaten 15 of my plants. I planted 60 plants this year. I have to put them in the spring and take them out in the fall, and they've already attacked 15 of them. So, but that's not the worst part of it. They go right down the road. They run right down the road. About 2 months ago, my husband said, look out between our house and the neighbors, and there were 7 deer standing there, and they took off down the road. I'm concerned about the people. Nobody expects to have the deer in town. You know, so I'm just want to bring it to your attention, and I'll deal, I mean, these deer are ruthless. I'm telling you, they are. They're inner city deer. They're from the hood. We can run them off, and within 2 hours, they're back and they bring their buddies with them. Because we have one of those real powerful lights that come on, and my husband will say, your deers are back, because the light stays on. It's not like a squirrel running past. So I just want to bring that to your attention. And since everything was being talked about the signs, I think this is Lake Street that comes around here in front of the funeral home, correct? Right on that curve. My husband has mentioned this to me for years, and it says no parking. And the next signs, it says odd and even parking for the snow removal. Now, it's strange that there's going to be that, and because there's people parking there all the time during the summertime, and that's right on that curb. And with the house, with the other side that does have the parking to a certain degree, it really brings it close. Okay, so if somebody could take a look at that, I'd appreciate it. And my husband will stop talking about it for years. Thanks.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you so much. Anyone else in the audience?
Joe Leonardi, 712 Allegan. At the last meeting, there was discussions about the exit at Lake Street and perhaps putting a stoplight there. I'll be the first one to agree that they have horrible sight lines, and anyone turning left or cars coming south on Blue Star, it's a real problem. The fortunate thing is that I think many people using that exit are either going to a bank, to the beach, they're going to the restaurants, they're going to Taft's, or I call it Taft's or DeMond's. So you'd have a minimal amount of people turning left, but still it's something I think is important that it should be addressed. My concern is with committing, I think they were talking about $250,000 without a thorough investigation. Now, I can't take credit for this idea. It's got to go to Dan Fox, who had mentioned that you turn Lake Street there into right turn only. And I said, which I think the majority of people who use that do it anyway. It doesn't prevent anybody from turning in the city. Now, I stopped and I talked to Greg Muncy for a few minutes the other day, and I voiced my concern. And I kind of ambushed Greg as his place of business. So we didn't have a lot of time to think about this. And Greg, I believe you had a concern that it might be a detriment to the people on the bike path. But my feeling is that the people at the bike path, any bicycle rider is under the same laws as the people in automobile. They have to stop, they have to yield. My suggestion is that you turn that into a right turn only situation and you put a couple of yield signs there. Now, what that's going to do is it will give you time to study the project. And you're not committed, your only money you're committing are for those yield signs. So to me, is it a perfect solution? Perhaps not, but it does give you time to study this and will not initially cost the $250,000. If it is implemented on a trial basis, it will give the council ample time not only to study the situation, but get feedback from the community and the businesses there. Now, worst case scenario is nobody likes it, it doesn't work, but again, you've only committed to the cost of a few signs, not a $250,000 stoplight. So in the worst case scenario, you move the signs and you reconsider a traffic light. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I put this in the same lump of the airport property. I don't really care one way or the other. It's not going to really affect me. There's pros and cons, but I see this as a possibility of doing something without an extensive cost to the city.
All right, Joe, thank you.
Joe.
Anyone else in the audience in person wish to speak?
Mark Klungel, 747 Water. I again wanted to reiterate my issue about Pleasant Street because the residents aren't getting any notice about it. The residents should have a voice. I don't know when residents get a voice on something like this. They live on the street. Last time we were here 11 years ago, we had 6 of the residents here. We talked about it and agreed to no parking on one side. Nobody followed through from the city standpoint. But that's where the residents are. We agreed to no parking on one side of the street. As for the house that wants the special parking, if you can build a house there, you can build parking. So, I mean, all of us have had to build parking, and that street was done in 2011 and 2012 was redone. The street is pushed all the way against the easement. It's right of roadway on the one side. So the other side, you really can't because it's downhill. You can't widen it very easily. So it's very difficult to widen that road. Taking out the curbs might be a better issue. So, but I really object to eliminating parking on both sides of Pleasance, because the people should have a voice in this process, and a lot of people have no notice what you're doing to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
As long as Joe's gonna take my name in vain, I better get up here and, a lot of safety talk tonight, which is, I think, a good thing in general.
Can you say your
Dan
name?
Fox, sorry,
Thank
Dan
you.
Fox, City Secretary. And I wanted to follow up on that with sort of a personal project of mine, which Ryan is familiar with, Scott's familiar with, and that's the corner of Blue Star and North Street. And as those of you who've been around very long know, that last year that intersection suffered a multi-fatality crash. Probably the only one we've had in Saugatuck in my time here. That I think merits action, a good deal more action that has taken place, which in my eye has been basically nothing so far related to the enhancing safety there. I had spoken to Daniel DeFranco at the township about it, because there used to be two, and that's a shared intersection. The far side's township, the close side Saugatuck. There used to be two of the solar powered flashing red light stop signs at Blue Star and Old Allegan. Those signs are gone now because they're going to put a roundabout in and they don't need them. So I was curious what the hell happened to those signs, because my ideal would be that those two signs, even if we have to pay for one of them, migrate, 2 miles or whatever it is north, and they go in. I said to Ryan in a follow-up note, I said, I will readily plead guilty to having been scarred by that experience of that accident that morning. I was walking my dog that morning. All of the fire equipment was, you could hear it forever. And I was at the bottom of North Street, right, almost north of Maple. And one of the firemen who I know came down. There was a truck blocking the intersection. The car landed south of the intersection on the far side. He told me, he said, don't go up there. I said, no, I didn't intend to. He said, really, do not go up there. You don't want to see what happened there. The chief kept his people, younger people. He said, your time will come. This is not your time. You don't need to see it. And he later described for me in words, which I will not share with you, how absolutely gruesome the situation was there with those three ladies. And part of the reason, again, I fixated on this, at that time of year, when you come up that hill and you're coming up on an angle like this, the sun is low. It backlights those signs, and they, I assure you, are virtually invisible. So even adding, as I once asked Scott, the cross traffic does not stop, doesn't help if it's invisible. Those red flashing lights would help that not be the case. If that's invisible and you're not from around here, and those ladies weren't, it looks like you're just going uphill. And by the time you know you're in an intersection, the dump truck is there to hit them and kill 3 people. Dreadful. So awareness is the beginning of a change. Thank you.
All right, Dan, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? All right, online, Christopher, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as I stated earlier, yeah, I'm all about safety.
If you
my
could
home on
state your name. Sorry, Christopher, I see your name spelled out there, but if you wouldn't mind stating your name and where you're from.
Christopher Howe, 731 Pleasant Street.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all the discussion of safety. We're all for safety. But I just feel our street is not much different than a lot of these other streets where you're putting parking on the other side. I've been there when piles of leaves on that street for weeks take up more than one lane, one side of that road. And the trucks come through, they pick it up. I've been there when the gardeners have been there blowing the leaves out and the city's picking up leaves. So that was brought up earlier. And everybody seems to get through there and get the job done. I just feel, I don't know, again, why the focus is on our street. There's been some negative comments about short-term rentals that have come up, or, I don't get the email blasts. I think that's inappropriate. I do get the email blasts. I just can't go through everything and find and pinpoint, what notice is specific for me and my street all the time. I think this being singled out, the only street being no parking on both sides, we should have been given notice. We aren't that many houses on Pleasant Street. And I just feel, you guys have dropped the ball with letting us know and having us get more information about this. But I appreciate letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else online? All right, you'll see the correspondence in your packet, and we are now on to council comments. Logan, would you like to start?
No comments.
Okay. All right, Logan, thanks.
We
Gregory?
had a great Memorial Day parade, and our fellow councilman, I saw you marching along with the other folks there. Corey Stoppel had a wonderful speech as well, great speaker, and it was great to see everybody there. And summer is officially here.
Just like to thank DPW for getting the flags out, getting the park ready as best you could. I know we were behind schedule on the build, but we were able to do the ceremony where we normally do. The American Legion was very grateful. I think it was a great day, both here and in Douglas and at the local cemeteries. So thank you all for your support of the event.
Okay, Ellen?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
All right, Russ?
Yeah, a few comments. Again, for Memorial Day, even with kind of iffy weather, I was very impressed with the turnout and want to thank Post Commander Rick Gilman for putting that together. It's a thankless task, and it's just a small opportunity for this community to recognize the sacrifice that veterans have made to the community. And it was interesting because when you're walking around, not everybody that is a veteran is in the parade. There's a number of people I saw that were wearing old uniforms that just there's a lot of pride in their service. And again, I just want to thank our veterans for everything that they do. I also do want to say, and I think one of the, Christopher Houck mentioned this, parking has been an issue well before we had vacation rentals. So I just want to emphasize, short-term rentals are not creating parking problems. They contribute to it, but they're not the sole source. So Saugerties is a popular community. A lot of people like to come here. They all drive here. I'm going to continue to emphasize, we need to find ways to have people come to town with not driving a car if we can do it. That's, to me, is the long-term solution, figure out ways to get people to come to town and not have to drive into town. I do want to thank my aunt, Debbie, and Uncle Jim for being here this evening. I'm one of the neighbors that has experienced some of the deer issues. And as a matter of fact, today, coming in on Holland Street, I had to stop twice for deer crossing Holland Street, and one right in front of the Peterson Mill, which is highly unusual. And I think anybody that's been here for a few hours, it is different now than it has been. There's deer in places I've never seen deer before. And I think this is something that the city is going to have to address in some form or fashion in the future. Like many other communities have had to address this, Douglas is doing it. I don't know what the solution looks like, but it is going to become a safety issue. And I don't think there's any easy solution to it. I do want to say thank you to the mayor. I sent an email earlier today with an update on the city manager process, and she gave me an answer, and I would just thank you for responding to that. Thank you.
Thanks to DPW, you've been a heavy lift with everything, and so appreciate all that you and your team do, Scott. And congratulations, Ryan. It's really exciting to have you be our city manager in waiting. And that's it for me.
Okay. At this time, could I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor say yes.
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 Thanks, everyone.